Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband News. So there's a lot of opportunity for broadband operators in delivering broadband services to apartment buildings. There are some challenges. Technology as far as providing service over existing wiring is a good option that can overcome those challenges. There are also some challenges as far as maybe existing operators that are in there and some hindrances there, but the FCC is trying to help out with that. So I'll be right back to talk about this. See you in just a moment. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Zecorum with Broadband News. So I wanted to look at this article and comment on it because, it says it makes some good valid points in here. But I think some of the problems can be overcome. And actually today, like I said, there's technology that can make this very easy for service providers. So you see here, old apartment buildings have some big broadband infrastructure problems. They mentioned a couple of things in here that I want to address. So, that's one problem if your building looks like that, but that's not what they're talking about. And you see here just some bullet points here at the top of the article. By the way, I linked to this article as well as a couple of other things in the description of the video. So, older apartment buildings often struggle with internet bandwidth and maintaining device connections, but many MDU owners don't own their building's infrastructure and are locked into legacy contracts with a service provider. The existence of bulk billing arrangements between broadband providers and MDUs is a contentious topic. That's true. But some of these things, like I say, are being looked at. Some have been kind of ruled on already by the FCC. And again, there's technology that some of the things that they mentioned here that can overcome these things. So making broadband available to the masses is no easy task in any environment. But trying to do it for people living in decades-old apartment buildings, and there are a lot of people that are doing that. So a majority, 82% of multi-dwelling units, MDUs over 10 years old, report internet connectivity challenges, according to a recent study from Comcast Xfinity Communities in collaboration with Parks Associates. So this is an article that's quoting Parks Associates and again collaborating with Xfinity, and Xfinity has been big into this industry. So they have a lot of experience in that, and they are some of the ones that are, I guess, in a way blocking other operators as best they can from getting in there because they want to kind of have the monopoly in some of these buildings. Issues include maintaining device connections over a Wi-Fi network and insufficient bandwidth, which can be difficult to fix due to the infrastructure of older apartment buildings, said Jennifer Kent, VP of Research at Parks Associates. So you don't have to provide the service over Wi-Fi networks. Some people are doing that because one of the challenges that people think is out there is the existing wiring in the building because it's not wired for Ethernet or for fiber. So you've got maybe just phone lines, or you've got maybe phone lines and coax. But if you've got either one of those things, and again, a lot of these buildings have not just phone lines, but they got phone lines and coax running through there, then you can provide gig service over that existing wiring without having to go in and rewire things. And I'll explain a little bit more about that here in a minute. She explained that unlike newer MDUs, these buildings were built without suitable wiring or the infrastructure to run new wiring. Older MDUs may have thicker walls or various types of building materials. So again, what they're talking about is that you might have to go in and rewire the building. Maybe when they say older wiring, if it's coax and it's phone wire, you can still use that. There's also the challenge of not wanting to disrupt tenants while making infrastructure improvements, said Xfinity Communities VP Eileen, that's not Ian, is it? Eileen Efremian. That's tricky since upgrades can require spending hours in each apartment pulling open walls and stuff. Well, you really don't need to do that. Again, if you've got you're going to have existing wiring in there. It's either phone lines, coax, it's either phone lines and coax, or let's say just phone lines. But either way, you've got existing wiring in there where you don't need to rewire. You don't need to do anything in the home except go plug something in the wall. I'll explain a little bit about that here. In fact, let me talk just real quickly about that. So, and if you go to our website and you look under products and you look under g.hn or under solutions, you can find it under, I'll just show you a couple of different places here, I think. So where is it? It's in here somewhere under solutions. Might be under digital services. Anyway, trust me, if you go under products, I know it's there under GHN, and that'll pull up this page. provide gigabit broadband to apartment residents using existing wiring. So you can check that out. It's about using G.hn, which is a technology that you can use to connect basically to the existing wiring. You can put a concentrator in the building or on the outside, something they have hardened ones as well as ones that can go inside, into a closet or something like that. And then you can connect up apartments one at a time, so you don't need to go in and rewire the whole building. It wouldn't make sense, obviously, rewiring one apartment at a time. So you'd want to have to rewire the whole building, but you don't have to do that. You can go in, you can connect up to the existing wiring, and then on each apartment that you go to, you just bring a little CPE, a little piece of CPE that plugs into the existing wiring, whether that's coax or the phone line. You plug it in there, that goes into a router, and suddenly you're providing broadband service over the existing wiring. It really works. It's been out there a long time. I did a couple of years ago. I did something with someone at the home what was it? I'm trying to remember the folks that do the GHN Home Forum or something like that. But anyway, the folks that are promoting this standard. I should link to that. I'll go ahead and link to that in the description of this video as well. So anyway, this is proven technology that works. So you don't need to be thinking about, wow, here's a building I can't touch because it's got existing wiring. Don't let that stop you. Okay. It mentions here also, this is interesting, but modern apartment buildings have some infrastructure problems of their own, he added. For example, the glass in some of the new high-rise buildings can block radio frequency signals, resulting in really bad cell phone quality for residents. So that's interesting. You would think with more glass it would be better, but maybe it's reflective glass. If there's a lot of glass, then maybe they have some kind of mirror reflecting on there that would prevent that. But that's cell phone service. Again, if you don't need to do Wi-Fi service in these buildings. If it's a new building, it might be wired for Ethernet or fiber, and you can use that. If it's an older building, you can use the existing wiring that's in there. Infrastructure issues particularly plague subsidized housing. According to Pew Charitable Trust, more than half of public housing units were built before 1975 without broadband in mind. Public housing providers also can't raise rents to cover the cost of retrofitting a building to update or install new wiring. Again, you don't need to retrofit the building or install new wiring with G.hn, so make sure you check that out. HUD-assisted housing in particular often does not have enough funding for capital expenditures to address building issues that hinder broadband access, Pew's Catherine DeWitt noted in a blog post. Many MDU owners don't necessarily own the building's broadband infrastructure, and they are locked into a legacy contract with the service provider that does own the wires, Kent said, making it difficult to switch to another provider. There is some of that, but I also linked in the description to a couple of things that the FCC has done, and they for years have been trying to stop this idea of an incumbent provider owning the wiring so that nobody else can use it. And I linked to a couple of these. So I linked to a couple of streams that I did prior about these two situations, and then also the FCC documents here. So this is, for example, a report and order back from February 2022, where again they're addressing this, some of these hindrances here. If I just scroll down a bit, I'll just read the relevant part, but you can look at this, or again, you can look at the video that I did about this. So this is page 6, I guess. So the kind of a summary of the report and order. In light of the evidence in the record, we take steps to promote competitive choice in MTEs. That's a multi-tenant environment, same thing as a multi-dwelling unit, and target 3 specific practices that frustrate competition, impede deployment by competitive providers, and reduce choice for Americans living and working in MTEs. In the report and order, we adopt new rules prohibiting practices which undermine the Commission's longstanding prohibition on exclusive access contracts. We prohibit telecommunications carriers and MVPDs, that's multi-video providers, from entering into exclusive and graduated revenue sharing agreements, and we require that telecommunication carriers and MVPDs include disclaimers on marketing materials distributed to MTE tenants that inform tenants of the existence of an exclusive marketing arrangement. In other words, if you go in there and they're pushing a particular provider's services, they've already kind of got a foothold in there, they need to let you know, hey, this is part of an exclusive marketing arrangement, where that's something that the FCC can't necessarily stop. They can't say, hey, you can't say that they can't stop the the apartment building owner from saying we have an exclusive marketing arrangement with this provider, let's say Comcast. So that's who we're going to push. You have to put some kind of disclaimer on all your marketing material that says, hey, this is an exclusive marketing agreement, and there are other options available to you. In the attached declaratory ruling, we clarify that our cable inside wiring rules prohibit sale and leaseback arrangements between MVPDs and residential MTE owners because they effectively deny access to alternative providers. So what was going on to kind of get around this, the incumbent was selling the wiring back to the apartment owner, and the apartment owner was then leasing it, in a sense, back to the incumbent, and that was basically kind of an end around. So they're saying you can't do that. Through these actions, we all have practices that serve as an end run around our rules intended to foster competition, and we promote all the benefits that competition entails by addressing practices which limit consumer choice. Again, this was 2022, building on rulings that they had prior that said you cannot have these arrangements where you're preventing other operators to come in and use the wiring in that building. And then I'll get to the other one here in a second. So we get there bulk billing. So I'll talk about that here in a moment as far as the other efforts that the FCC is making in this area. So you see bulk billing, bad or good. When talking about how to better connect MDUs, a contentious topic in the broadband industry is the existence of bulk billing arrangements. So this is a similar kind of thing where the apartment owner, the building owner will have an arrangement with somebody like a Comcast, and they'll say, hey, we want a lower price, and we'll do bulk billing, which means we will add the cost of broadband service and or maybe cable TV, but let's say broadband service because this is kind of what we're talking about here. We'll add that into the rent. So we won't necessarily have everybody as a customer, but we will add, let's say, $40, $50 to everybody's rent. And then if they want broadband, they just come to us and they get it, and it's part of their rent. If they don't want it, they're still paying that $40 to $50 as part of their rent. So you can see there is kind of good and bad. It does, for those that want it, does maybe give them a lower price for it. But for those who don't want it, they're paying for something they don't need and they don't want, right? So tenants under a bulk billing agreement are required to pay for broadband, cable, or satellite service from a specific provider, even if they would prefer to use another. Affinity communities serve, and this shows you how big they are here, they serve about 250,000 properties in the U.S., from MDUs to hospitals and college dorms. An Xfinity Communities exec told Fierce last year, while some of its contracts are bulk, meaning Comcast is the sole Wi-Fi provider for the building, the majority of its contracts are retail, thus other providers offer internet to the property. So it's interesting that they apparently have a lot of Wi-Fi where they're doing this in the buildings as opposed to over existing wiring. And it may be because these buildings just have phone wiring. They don't have coax. And again, even for Comcast to go in and wire the whole building for coax would be expensive. And now with, again, the FCC really trying to get away from that, they're making all these rulings to where that can't be done. Anybody who pays to go rewire a building, you're taking a chance because you can go rewire that building with fiber. And if you do, you can use it, but so can anybody else. So it's not like you can rewire the building and then say, this is my fiber and nobody else can use it. That's just not the way it works today. So nobody's going to be rewiring buildings. That's why it's so good to have an option where you can provide the service over the existing wiring. Now, you could be providing that along with others. Others can share that same wiring, but you get in there, you provide good service, maybe get in there first over this existing wiring using the G.HN that I let you know about, then you have an advantage there. It says here, if we're not allowed to come in as a bulk provider because another provider doesn't allow for that, that's fine. We're working on ways to come in as just another retail option, as a choice option. So again, that's really the way it's supposed to be. That's what the FCC is looking for, as kind of like an open access network or internet service in the apartment building, like you might have an open access network in a city. So in that situation, the city builds a network, and they say anybody who wants to provide services over this fiber network, for example, just come in and you can be the marketing folks that do that. We'll take care of maintain the fiber network and you can market your services over that. Well, this is a similar kind of thing where everybody's using the existing infrastructure in the building. The FCC proposed in March a ban on bulk billing arrangements in MDUs. A number of arguments have arisen both in favor and against the proposal, and I linked to that as well. So right here you'll see this was a press release back from March from FCC Chairwoman Rosenworcel, and kind of right here, specifically the notice of proposed rulemaking that they want to do. They haven't put this out as far as I know. I think they're just proposing that That would propose banning bulk billing arrangements by which tenants are required to pay for broadband, cable, and satellite service provided by a specific communications provider, even if they do not wish to take the service or would prefer to use another provider. It proposes allowing tenants to opt out of bulk billing arrangements. The proposal would also increase competition for communication service in these buildings by making it more profitable for competitive providers to deploy service in buildings where it is currently too expensive to serve consumers because tenants are required to take a certain provider's service. The Commission would also seek comment on other practices that may limit consumer choice in multi-unit buildings. So if let's say you've got this situation where you can't be the sole owner of that wiring, you can't be the only operator using that wiring, but then you have bulk billing in place with somebody, well, then that really still makes it difficult for those people, even though they can provide service over that existing wiring. The one who's doing the bulk billing has the advantage because, again, they are getting paid for every single unit in that apartment, whether that person takes it or not. Then you need to go in there, and you're only going to get paid for the people that actually take it. So you're going to have to charge a higher price. So that's why they're trying to get rid of these bulk billing arrangements. So again, I linked to this in the description of the video as well. The FCC, I just read this, so that's what we just looked at. Trade groups like ACA Connects and nonprofits such as Education Superhighway oppose a bulk billing ban, arguing it would leave low-income housing folks without an affordable retail broadband option. And again, the thought there is that the low-income housing folks would be paying less because every single unit, the cost is being split between every single unit because whether they take it or not, it's being added to the rent. Well, then low-income folks, they're having to pay whatever that lower amount is. They're still having to pay it if they don't want it. So that doesn't make much sense to me. According to Kent, apartment residents that pay for internet as part of their rent or through their property manager tend to spend less than those with a retail plan. Parks Associates found MDU residents with a bulk internet arrangement pay around $40 per month compared to $64 per month for retail internet. Again, why? Because it's being added to the rent of every single person in that building, whether they want that or not. So that means everybody in the building is paying $40 as opposed to $64 for only those people who want it. So if you don't want it, you're paying $40 more. If you do want it, you're paying $24 more. So still, to me, the bulk billing, I don't like it. Parks Associates noted that these figures are standalone service prices, meaning these are residents who don't have add-ons like pay TV or mobile broadband with their internet. When considering these numbers, a bulk billing arrangement sounds good in theory, but nonprofit Public Knowledge argued that these contracts don't always end up serving consumers' interests. Since landlords have no obligation to inform renters of the potential additional cost of utilities until the point of sale, bulk billing arrangements rarely play a role in tenants' rental decision-making, they said. The nonprofit also argued that even with a discounted bulk arrangement, consumers who qualify for the government's Lifeline subsidy or another low-cost internet program may end up paying more than they can afford for broadband. And one final point, folks have complained to the FCC that bulk billing forces them to pay for cable TV even though they don't watch TV, or that they already have fiber but are forced to pay for cable broadband. So, it's not just about the pay TV, it's about the broadband service. So again, I linked to these two items here as well as to streams that I talked when these two things came out, that I talked a little bit more in detail about that if you want to check those out. I will also, again, as I mentioned, I'll post something about the GHN, the Home Broadband Forum, whatever it is. I'm sorry, I can't remember that. I'll post the video that I did with the person who was over that talks specifically about that technology, because that's very interesting, and it's listening specifically to what it's about from her. And again, as I mentioned, go ahead and check this out on our website. You see here, if you go to GHN again on our website, that you will have an opportunity to read about that. You want to try it out. You'll have to, if you want to try it out, the way we're doing that, it's fairly significant for us to provide a trial. So if you want to try it out, let us know, and we will get with you on. It needs to be in a field trial. You can't just stick in the lab and say, "Oh yeah, it works." If you want to do a field trial, we will let you try this out. In other words, you want to check it out, and if it works, you buy it. We'll let you try that out for 45 days. And just check that out. Again, a lot of information on here that explains how it works, what it kind of looks like, the equipment. Again, you've got hardened stuff that can go outside, or you've got other devices that can go inside. Works with coax and with twisted pair. And again, you can provide gig broadband over this existing infrastructure. There's software that lets you manage these things and turn them up. So it's a great option if you want to be able to provide broadband to existing apartment units. So check us out. You can do that if you go to, again, zcorm.com and look for the G.HN under the products. If you've got any questions, just send us an email or give a call here, and somebody will be happy to talk to you about that. Thanks for joining me today. If you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. And if you like this, if you learned something new today, if you give me a thumbs up on the video, I would appreciate that. Thanks for joining me today for Broadband News. See you next time. Bye-bye.